Hello, hello. Welcome, friends. This is the UFC Phoenix official weigh-in stream here on MMA Fighting. And I am Sean Al-Shadi. I am joined today by my fellow Arizona resident, Jose Youngs. We have an all-Arizona affair here this weekend. This is going to be a fun one. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of drama this morning. We have heavyweights in the main event.
I think there's always a sense of, like, will Renan Barão make weight? Even if it's at featherweight, it's always like a big question mark. Cynthia Calvillo did miss weight her last time. That was in Argentina, but she said there were circumstances that it wasn't her weight cut, it was like health reasons she didn't make it. But
either way.
Yeah, either way.
It'll be a fun morning. It's been a fun week here in the desert. In this fight, I mean, Francis Ngannou versus Cain Velasquez is obviously the first headliner on ESPN. And it's a fun one, man. It is an interesting one. Both these guys have been very compelling throughout the week. There's a lot of mystery in this fight because it feels like it's only going to go one of two ways, right?
Well, you say that, but then, like, Junior Cain, the second time, went all 5 rounds. And I was so confident that fight was going to last maybe 2. Because Cain was, like, at that point was still, like, starching fools, like, not finishing Brock Lesnar, finishing Bigfoot, like, yeah, he got knocked out and then Junior knocked him out in, like, what, 68 seconds the first time, whatever. And so I think if it makes it past the second round, at that point, it's whether Cain finishes the fight or not. Because, like, the second fight, he's like, I wanted to punish Junior, so he, like, drew the fight out. Like, he chose to go 5 rounds against Junior Dos Santos. Whether that's true or not is another thing, but on paper, it shouldn't last 5 rounds, but who knows? Especially with a 2-year layoff.
Who knows? There's certainly no shortage of storylines this weekend, and it's been interesting to see these two men interact. It's been relatively friendly. I mean, we saw their first face-off
Very friendly.
Yesterday at Media Day. They were embracing, hugging. I mean, Francis Ngannou has been very open in calling Cain his dream fight, saying that, you know, he looked up to him. He's a big fan. He called himself a fan yesterday. And also, I mean, Cain Velasquez, this is the first time we're seeing this guy since 2016. You got to go all the way back to UFC 200.
Yep. It's at the open workouts when we saw Cain warming up. I think you and I were like, I've never seen Cain, like, fired up.
That was the most fired up I have ever seen Cain in this. I've been in this business for a long time at this point. I've never seen Cain Velasquez like that.
We joked that at the luncheon when he joked about, like, the Ford Escort thing. He was, like, joking about Dana comparing Francis' punching power, and everyone's like, oh, it takes talking about cars to fire Cain up. But the open workouts, that was a scary man. Like, he was getting his boxing his gloves tied by his coach, and he was still, like, jumping. He was on his toes, bouncing back and forth. Like, he was ready to go. Yeah. I remember talking to all the media, and they were like, "This is a bad, bad man. If Cain is on point, he's fired up. He's obviously focused, but he kind of had that Fedor mystique for a while, where he just showed no emotion, and he was hyped for sure."
You know, we have this card may not be deep on star power outside of the main event, but it is a deep card, just in general. It feels to me like a hardcore fan
I think
card.
It's really good for an ESPN card, where you look at it on paper, there's not a lot of quote-unquote boring fights that might take place.
I mean, you look up and down, you can pick out interesting things, interesting, compelling storylines from each fight, more or less. And that main card, I mean, if you're a hardcore fan, there's a lot to like there, and we will talk about it throughout the next couple hours and over the course of the day, also the preview show later today, but it's going to be a fun weekend.
It's going to be, I'm very excited. This is a great fight card. For the first time they came to Phoenix, that fight, we were talking about it. Looking back, that was absolutely stacked, the UFC on Fox card with JDS Miocic, and then they came back with that Yair BJ Penn fight, and
oh, man,
that was also, I believe, on a Sunday, and it was during the NFC divisional round, so crowd wasn't even into the whole spectacle. And then they came back to Glendale.
Well, you got to bring me down by bringing up that Yair BJ Penn fight. I wiped that from my memory. I was there for that, and that was maybe the most depressing I've ever seen in an arena.
It was a reality. It happened in Phoenix, Arizona. And then they went to Glendale with Israel Adesanya was on that card, and Poirier Gaethje was on that card and everything. That was last April, but that was all the way up in Glendale. So good card for the Phoenix market.
And it appears things are starting to pick up here. It is 9 o'clock. It's 9:04 actually, so I would imagine we'll be getting going.
Who do you think comes out first?
Oh, I have no idea. I'm not gonna make bets on that.
Well, usually, like for 229, Habib was like, "I'm coming out first." No?
And we are rolling, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the UFC Phoenix weigh-in stream. Bryan Barberena up first on the scale.
Dad bod Barberena from your interview with him.
Barberena, of course, taking on Vicente Luque here on this main card. Vicente, someone who is on an incredible run of late.
Taking some time on the scale.
Well, you know, it's the first one. You gotta.
It's true.
Even the commission members got to get warmed up. $170.5 for Bryan Barberena kicking off the day. And again, he fights Vicente Luque on this main card. And that is a compelling fight. To me, this feels like the Bryan Barberena fight, right? Like, this is the Bryan Barberena zone. Everybody doubting you, big underdog, fighting someone on a big streak.
When is he not going to be an underdog? Andrea Lee up next.
Andrea Lee up next. She is, of course,
she's on the preliminary card, the ESPN card, fighting Ashley Evans-Smith.
yes.
I believe she was supposed to.
$125.5 for KGB Lee. And this is a big fight here for Andrea Lee, Jose.
Shoot for both of them, but especially, like, there's a lot of emotions going into this fight for Andrea Lee. A lot of stuff's happened in her personal life that in your interview she said she was embarrassed about. Aljamain up next.
Aljamain Sterling up next. He's taking on Jimmy Rivera here on the prelims on ESPN. And this is a fight long in the making. We will talk about that in a second. Aljamain Sterling on the scale. $136 for Aljamain Sterling. Gold chain and all.
Yeah, and he was on the MMA Hour. So hype up.
Aljamain Sterling says, "Shut up, Jose. He ain't trying to hear you."
He was on the MMA Hour saying this fight means this is more than just a win for him. Him and Jimmy have had a.
$135.5 for Luke Sanders.
Luke Sanders talking to him yesterday, saying he was hoping to get a very fast win, get a quick turnaround, get on that Nashville card. Because yeah, he is an Arizona guy, but he considers Nashville his home. Was a little upset that they announced that card after he already had his fight booked.
All right, guys,
Emily Whitmire coming to the scale now. She's taking on Alexandra Albu in the opening fight on the main on the card in general here on Sunday.
116.
116 for Emily Whitmire.
Low key, one of like the best interviews on this card. Yeah. She's great to talk to.
Yeah.
She's the fighter that gave Vivian Mazalhage the double birds after her fight.
That is true.
Yeah. She's very open. She'll talk about anything. I believe her first fight was at a bar when someone was like, "Who wants to fight?" Benito Lopez out next.
Benito Lopez stepping to the scale. He is taking on Manny Bermudez in a bantamweight fight on the ESPN prelims.
135.5.
135.5 for Benito Lopez.
He said he was very excited to. His goal is to join Henry Cejudo as one of the faces of the Hispanic American market in the UFC.
All right, guys, Nick Lentz.
This is his first step. Nick Lentz, long time UFC fighter.
Nick Lentz up now. He's taking on Scott Holtzman in a lightweight fight on the ESPN prelims. And we apologize if we are having connection issues or stream issues. There is the internet in where we are is not the best.
The internet has crashed.
It's not working for me whatsoever. 155.5 for Nick Lentz, the veteran of this card. Followed by another veteran, Alex Caceres, coming up now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sneaky veteran. At this point, he is on his 20th UFC fight. I would not have guessed that.
20th UFC fight, it's blowing minds.
He's taking on Chrome Gracie, the debuting Chrome Gracie on this main card. 146 for Alex Caceres. It's a big spot here for Alex. I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on Chrome Gracie.
Probably his biggest spot since his fight against Yair, that main event he had in Salt Lake City.
Absolutely.
It was absolutely a very fun fight.
Jody Escobar.
Jody Escobar up now. Another veteran. She's taking on Jessica Penne in a strawweight fight on the early prelims. 115.5 for Jody Escobar.
With Keith Jardine in tow, off to the side.
Keith Jardine and Brandon Gibson. She's got a whole crew.
That's Miles Jury.
Miles Jury up next. He's opening this main card against Andre Fili in a featherweight bout. $146 for Miles Jury. Scott Holtzman up now. The years are coming fast and furious.
One of my favorite interviews from last night, or from yesterday, said that if Francis Ngannou punched him, he would die.
That's fair. 156 for Scott Holtzman. He's taking on Nick Lentz to open up the ESPN prelims.
All right, guys. James Vick.
James Vick up now. He is the co-main event fighter. He is taking on. $156 for James Vick. Extraordinarily tall for a lightweight, but he makes that weight somehow every time.
Extraordinarily tall for a human. About 6'3". That's still a big boy.
Paul Felder.
Felder right up. These weigh-ins are flying.
James Vick's opponent coming up now, Paul Felder, co-main event fighter in a lightweight fight.
And UFC analyst extraordinaire.
$155.5 for Paul Felder. He looks focused and mean.
Got to think, his last fight was at welterweight. Over the summer, broke his arm. Lost out on a couple fights. So.
He had a frustrating 2018. He is looking forward to a very different 2019. Up next is Andre Fili.
Rascals crew member, Andre Fili.
He is taking on Miles Jury to open up this main card on ESPN.
Danny Castillo in tow. Former UFC lightweight.
145.5 for Andre Fili. Alexandra Albu up now. She's opening up this card on Sunday against Emily Whitwire in a strawweight fight. $114.5 for Alexandra Albu.
So that was one of the faster ways. It's obviously not over, but we crushed through a lot of those fights.
Yes, that is usually how it goes here. The early going is fast and furious, and then it slows down a little bit.
We're on a slight little hold right now.
All right, we are on a slight little hold for right now, and we will be back here in a moment. We're going to try to fix these internet issues, and we apologize again for the stream issues so far this morning. We will be back in a moment.
Undisclosed.
Hello friends, we are back. My name is Sean Al-Shadi. I'm joined as always by Jose Youngs here in Arizona at UFC Phoenix official morning weigh-ins. Apologies again about the early technical issues. There is internet problems in the room that this is being held in, but we hope to have fixed them.
Right.
We're going to power through it. Seems like we figured out a workaround for the moment. In the meantime, things are rolling here at UFC Phoenix weigh-ins. We have had a little bit of a break, but we had the early rush as always. Main event fighters, Cain Velasquez and Francis Ngannou, still yet to weigh in, although
It's not like
the
we have to worry
heavyweights,
about them,
yes.
yeah. I think
Cain Velasquez earlier this week,
Yep.
someone asked him his weight, and he said, "I haven't weighed myself in years." I think
Right.
it was something
the first
along
time
those lines.
The one that sticks out to me is when he fought JDS on New Year's Eve, and they're like, "Oh, what's it like?" Like all the fighters were talking about like missing Christmas and missing Thanksgiving. I was like, "Yeah, it's great. I love Christmas." It's like Cain and JDS just stuffing their faces with a turkey, and then you see Jim Miller and Joe Lozon just like all shriveled up, just like, "I hate you."
Yeah, it's funny. I had lunch with Francis Ngannou earlier this week, and I asked him, at this point, 5 days out, 6 days out, do you have to care about what you're eating? And it's like, "No, man, doesn't matter.
Nah.
It doesn't matter at all." He ends up ordering 2 different meals
Sure.
over the course of this lunch. And it's just like, all right, I guess that's the life of the heavyweight.
Unless you're like fighters like Mark Hunt, Greg Hardy, like those guys that actually have to cut down to, or what Justin Willis is probably up there too. Like those are big boys. Brock Lesnar walking around at like probably a good 315, cutting down to 265.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right.
Well, Jose, let's take a look at this card here on Sunday. And I have to keep saying Sunday because I have said Saturday way too many times over
Yes.
the course of this week, throwing us a curveball.
Yes.
But let's take a look at this card here on Sunday because as we had talked about earlier in the show, it is not the deepest in terms of star power, but there's little nibbles
Yeah.
on each fight. There's little compelling storylines to get you going. What is one fight not on the main card that you have your eye on the most?
Not on the main card. I'm gonna maybe a cop out. It's the Jimmy Rivera Aljamain Sterling fight. That's the headliner of the prelims. I wrote about Aljamain earlier this week, where Aljamain and Jimmy go back. Their beef goes back 5 years ago when they were both bantamweights in the CFFC Cage Fury Fighting Championships, which is a New Jersey-based promotion. And Aljamain was the bantamweight champion, and he vacated the belt to sign with the UFC. And Jimmy Rivera then won his vacant belt, and then he later vacated to sign with the UFC. So this is essentially 2 CFFC bantamweights, 2 of New York's elite bantamweights that have never fought. And Aljamain said that this fight means more than just a UFC win. Like he sees it as
for territorial.
It's a territorial one. It's for the quote unquote unification of their 2 former belts. He said he called Jimmy out like a few years ago when he was on that downward, like he lost to Caraway, and then he lost to I can't remember who. He called Jimmy Rivera out then, and Jimmy said no. And he's like, "You messed."
Sun Tzu as well.
Yeah, Sun Tzu. And Aljamain was like, "You should have taken that fight then because I'm so much better now." And to be fair, Jimmy Rivera was on like that winning streak in the UFC. He didn't want to fight someone that was on a 2-fight losing streak. But that for me, that's one of the fight that stands out on the whole card, not just the prelims.
It is funny how deep their rivalry goes. I didn't talk to them in depth, but I spoke to them very briefly throughout the course of the day yesterday. And, I mean, at one point, Jimmy Rivera's wife is going at Aljamain Sterling on social media.
Oh, yeah.
It is very personal, it seems.
Yeah, and they both, for people who don't know, like they're also in 2 completely separate gyms, obviously out in New York. There's Team Tiger Showman, and then Aljamain's obviously been like a Serra-Longo guy, and like those 2 gyms just themselves have beef. So take the 2 fighters out of the equation, like say there's nothing personal between these 2, it's still gym versus gym for them. So this has like deep roots. Their rivalry runs deep. So I'm very excited for this. And Aljamain was saying, Jimmy Rivera gets kicked in the head every single fight, so he's hoping to take advantage of that.
And of course, the last time we saw Aljamain Sterling, he's out here pulling off solo left stretches on full. So who knows what's in store for 2019? If you guys are just joining us, we're still waiting on the main event, but obviously it is heavyweight, so I don't know if there's going to be a lot of drama there. The co-main event fighters, James Vick and Paul Felder, both weigh in. They make weight. That lightweight showdown is set. And that is a very fascinating fight to me because it feels to me like both of those men are in very similar spots in their career and also just within this very strange lightweight division right now where there is a lot of uncertainty. There are a lot of guys trying to claw their way into this conversation. And both Paul Felder and James Vick find themselves sort of on the periphery of it, where they're in that 10 to 18 ranking realm, where it's a kind of no man's land, where it's impossible to get those top 10 fights. And all these guys are trying to fight each other. They're both coming off of losses right now. And you can see the frustration in both of their faces just when you even ask them about, do you see a path forward in this division for you?
And I think Vic brought it up where he's like, I have the same record as or close to it, of Yoel Romero, and he's fought for 2 championships, and he has the same record as a lot of elite fighters outside of he's 8-2. He's never fought for a title, and like you said, he's on the outskirts of the top 10. He's had a pair of 5-fight win streaks. He's getting knockouts, he's getting submissions. It's not like he's in bad fights, and he's still not in the top 10 in lightweight, which just shows how deep that division is. It's always been one of the deepest divisions in the UFC, and now that Khabib is sitting out for so long, and Conor might fight Cowboy, and Tony Ferguson's out there, and Dustin Poirier is just a lost man in the shuffle.
And we are back once again. Apologies all over again. The internet issue in this hotel, here in Phoenix, has been really, really rough. But I think we have finally figured it out. The host hotel has reset the internet.
Don't say that, you're gonna jinx it.
Fair. But hopefully the rest of the day goes smoothly. Thank you once again for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. If you are just joining us, this is the UFC Phoenix morning weigh-ins. We are still waiting on the main event. Francis Ngannou, Cain Velasquez, but we had an early rush. There's been a little bit of a break since. We have about half the card left. And let's get back to what we were just discussing, Jose, because you had mentioned Alex Caceres versus Kron Gracie. And it feels to me like there is a lot of interest in this fight, and a lot of interest just generally in the debut of Kron Gracie. This is a man who, I mean, you said it, we have not seen a Gracie in the UFC since 2013, since Hodger. We have not seen a Gracie win in the UFC since 1994, which is utterly bizarre to me. I would have never realized that.
And I believe in your interview, Kron Gracie didn't even know that. He's like, I didn't know that.
But he said, I didn't know that until you guys keep telling me about it.
Yeah, and he laughed at that. And he said that he always hated being Rickson's son, which is understandable because Rickson's one of the legends of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I don't want to say he has a chip on his shoulder, but he just doesn't seem, he's very much his own man. And he says, everyone's putting all this pressure on me, but I don't feel it. He doesn't feel any of that stuff. So, very interesting man. And
he was, I will say, man, that was the first time I have had a chance to interact with him in person.
Same.
He is a fascinating individual. One of the things that surprised me the most about when talking to him, he is fighting Alex Caceres, someone who has been in the UFC for a long, long time, someone who is on his 20th UFC fight. Kron Gracie is 4-0. Alex Caceres, just in the UFC alone, is on his 20th UFC fight. And his statement about Alex Caceres was, I initially wanted a better opponent.
Right.
This is a man who has been doing this for a while. He hasn't fought since 2016, but there were issues that held him out. I think he just wants, I get the sense at least, and you tell me if you get this sense as well, that he just wants to test himself. He just wants to understand where he stands in this general landscape, in this sport, just as a whole.
Well, yeah, I mean, his exact quote in your interview was, I'd rather fight someone that's trying to kill me than someone that's going to run away. And I was just like, good God, who wants to do that? But yeah, 100%. I mean, he very much seems like the martial arts kind of guy, rankings, titles, none of that doesn't mean a whole lot to him. He's like, I just want to test my skills against the elites.
He's a very much a mix of the Diaz brothers and the Gracies in the way, in his mannerisms and just the way he looks at this game. It's very interesting.
Nate's going to be in his corner. He said the Gracies are obviously royalty. The name just holds water, and you expect, and then Caceres, like you said, 20 fights. We were talking about Kron being an interesting character. I mean, your interview with him it changed my life.
He's not your average UFC fighter, man. I would say that, Alex Caceres.
When you see a man with a big afro, wearing like sewn boots, and he's talking about like the infinite time and space and expanding your mind, and once the mind expands past a certain dimension, it can no longer go back. And for the first time in his career, he feels like there's an infinite amount of space to work with. And I'm just sitting there just like, what are you saying? But I love everything that's happening.
You go back and listen to it though, it makes sense what he's saying. It's unusual. You don't hear that from fighters often, but it's unusual in a good way.
Would you say it's interesting?
Yes, he had me very befuddled
Yes.
at one point where I was unsure how to respond.
But so two very, like, Alex Serra's always been one of the more interesting guys, like even from back in The Ultimate Fighter when he was walking around the house in the yellow Bruce Lee jumpsuit. And he always does his live videos of him gardening in the back. I mean, I asked him about the main event. He goes, I don't watch fights at all. He's like, I don't know who Francis Ngannou is. I know who Kane is because I've heard of him, but like I couldn't tell you what they do. And so two very much people that are their own man, two very interesting, I don't want to call them characters, but like similar but different in the fact that they're both very mellow, very, you know, I could talk to both men for a long time and not get bored.
I will say, Jose, I mean, this is a weekend that I think UFC's been waiting for, right? Because you go back 8 years ago, the debut of the Fox deal, the first Fox card, that felt like a big deal at the time.
Huge deal.
I feel like this feels like less of a big deal, just generally for maybe people in the space. Maybe the Fox deal was the first time the sport, in some people's eyes, felt legitimate and felt legitimized, I should say, just by being on that sort of national TV carrier. I don't know that this one feels as big, but you talked to the fighters yesterday. There was a sense that that it meant something to them to be on a card like this, where it is the first of a 5-year deal, the first real big tentpole, if you will, for the ESPN deal.
Yeah, I talked to every fighter. I asked what does it mean to fight on ESPN? And pretty much all of them were it hit them this week. A lot of them were like, I'm gonna be on ESPN. Especially like Algermain was like, I remember growing up, like my mom, I would be doing my homework and like my mom would be doing the dishes or whatever, and we just have the TV on and it's always ESPN. And you go to a barbershop, ESPN is on. You go anywhere, it's 9 times out of 10, some TV station has ESPN. He's not fighting tomorrow, but Jakar Close was here with Courtney Casey, and he was so excited to potentially be on SportsCenter's top 10. Like, that meant more to him than like being on a pay-per-view. He's like, I'd rather be on the free fights and getting on the top 10 SportsCenter than fighting the opening fight of a pay-per-view. And a lot of fighters, I asked them, I go, if they offered you, like, say, the opening fight of an ESPN card, the opening fight of a pay-per-view, and you're not champion, like, does ESPN kind of overtake the mystique of fighting on a pay-per-view? Almost all of them were like, absolutely. Like, more fans are going to watch it. They're going to see you on ESPN. They're going to see like the tickers of like the ESPN news underneath, and it's going to legitimize them in the eyes of casual fans that say you're flipping through the channel and you just happen to see a 6'3" James Vick fighting redheaded Paul Felder, and you're like, well, what is happening here? And then you see some crazy stuff, and that's going to stick in your mind. And they were very, very excited to be able to reach an audience that might not pay for a pay-per-view. Well, that's the sense I got.
I want to ask you, because I mean, we have talked about the depth on this card. One fight that doesn't seem to be getting talked about a lot, that really is my fight to watch, the one that I have my eye on, and maybe I am alone in this sense, but Vicente Luque versus Brian Barberena, a welterweight fight that is sneaky good and is hidden on this undercard. I feel like, and you tell me whether I'm wrong, but I feel like Vicente Luque is the single most underrated fighter and overlooked fighter in the UFC right now. If
in the whole UFC?
I would go out and say that far, man. He is 7-1 in his last 8. All 7 of those, first and second round finishes.
It's true.
If 90% of UFC fighters had a run like that, I think most of them would be getting pushed. Most of them would be getting some kind of action, or at least a ranked opportunity. Vicente Luque, this goes to show the depth of the welterweight division, really, because he is not even ranked after doing what he is doing so far.
Right.
And he's still, Brian Barberena is a very, very tough man who has pulled off a lot of really good wins in the UFC. But Vicente Luque is not getting a ranked foe again, and I would imagine it's just frustrating for this man at this point.
And I think, and everything you said, I agree with. I think what's hurting him is like he fought on a lot of the Fight Pass cards, like the London cards, the Brazil cards, the Chile cards. Maybe fans just haven't had enough experience watching him fight. And
also, he isn't the most vocal person.
And he fought on UFC 229, but who remembers anything from 229 outside of that main event at this point?
Well, I mean, I remember Jalen Turner could barely walk out of the octagon. He was 100%. Down for a long time.
That was a scary, scary scene. But again, like I see Vicente Luque on this card, I'm like, oh, this is going to be the opportunity. He's going to get to break out. He's going to put on a great performance, and people will remember him on the biggest card of the year. And then the melee and everything happens, and that's the story everyone's talking about. And it kind of obviously overshadowed everything, rightfully so. And then he's lost to Leon Edwards,
that's not a bad loss.
Not at all. I mean, he's fighting in the co-main event of the London card. He's on a huge win streak. He beat Cowboy, and he's very much in the headlines now. And I just think the only thing that's hurting him in terms of the eyes of the fans was being on all these Fight Pass cards, and he doesn't have a lot of bonuses for all these finishes. He's been stuck on these cards where he's had a great knockout, but there's always been one better. And him being on a big ESPN card, I think it's the perfect opportunity. Brian Barberena is slouch. I mean, we were talking before. When is there a fight he's been a favorite? Like, he's always the underdog. I mean, what did you call him? Like Dad Bod Barberena was what you guys were talking about. And I think more people remember him for submitting Sage Northcutt than anything else, and that was years ago.
It's not even just Sage Northcutt, though, right? Because the fight right after that, he stunned Warley Alvarez
in
at
Brazil.
The time when Warley Alvarez was a very high prospect.
Yeah.
He had a very tough 2018 and end of 2017 where he was going through a lot of injuries, and it was really difficult for him. But he recovered to really badly hurt Jake Ellenberger to close out his year. I feel like the winner of this fight is right there in that top 15 mix at welterweight at this point. Because
Absolutely.
You look at Barberena, his only losses, again, we're
Edwards
talking about Leon
Colby.
Edwards and then Colby Covington as well.
Yeah.
Within the last few years. Neither of those is bad losses.
Absolutely not. I 100% agree with you. Both of these men have long been overlooked. Both of these men, not the most vocal, I don't want to say marketable because I don't like that word, but like they just don't go out there and push themselves and promote themselves. And I spoke with Vicente about fighting on ESPN, and he was so excited to fight on this card specifically, to showcase his skill set. I even asked him about the main event, and he was just so fired up. So you get the sense he loves talking fighting. He loves mixed martial arts, and I'm obviously not gonna. I can't pick that fight now, but
yes, let's save those for later.
Let's save those for later. But that's you're not wrong in saying that could steal the night. That could steal the show for sure.
And Brian Barberena, it's a home game for him. He is one of 3 MMA Lab fighters on this card. Him, Courtney Casey, and Alex Caceres all on the main card. So this is going to be a big night for the MMA Lab. I will say the MMA Lab has been on a bit of a very sneaky tear over the last year. They have been very successful of late.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a big night for them.
Speaking of underrated, I think Coach Crouch is one of the most underrated coaches in the game for sure too.
I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
If you are just joining us, this is the UFC Phoenix morning weigh-in stream. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been a fun week here in Phoenix. I am Sean Oshadi. I am joined by Jose Youngs, 2 Arizona residents, 2
Sun
Desert
Devils.
Dwellers getting a home game this week. I will always take a home game. 2 Sun Devils as well, that's right.
Yeah.
Not much else to add there because we don't really do much in terms of ASU being able to do anything in any capacity.
We have James Harden.
Oh, great. We have the most unenjoyable basketball player to watch.
We have the just stand-up gentleman that is Vontaze Perfect.
We are just killing it, aren't we? Jeez.
Terrell Suggs. We got Terrell Suggs.
Okay, there we go. You got to go for the Wayback Machine on that
Dustin
one.
Pedroia, MVP, 4-time World Series champion, 3-time champion. Wasn't on that 014. So it's a great time.
No one cares about your Boston sports.
Hey. Fine then, what is it? Paul LaDuca, I think, went to ASU. I could be wrong on that.
Really going way back at this point.
Andre Ethier, big LA Dodgers fan, former, I don't even know if he's on the Dodgers still, right fielder. Wow, so there's a journalist next to me that got very offended by that.
Well, you know, we are in Arizona, so the FLA chants comes loud and strong here, and I support that. But that is neither here nor there.
Sure.
I have no one else from ASU that I can think of, so we're great. It's
Yeah.
a great university, and I'm real proud.
Sandra Day O'Connor's the law school, so we got that going for us. Walter Cronkite didn't come here.
There you
to
go.
journalism school. He didn't go here though.
For some reason, our journalism school is named after him.
Hey, he's yeah.
So
Voice
Jose,
of America.
hit me with a Arizona fun fact.
Ooh, 48 state. I believe the hottest recorded temperature was 123, and that was at the airport back in like 1990, I should say. Averages 5 days a year where it dips below freezing, and that's usually at night, and it's usually like right at freezing. So it's hot.
I am staring at you mouth agape because you just rattled that all off like the top.
Hey, man,
you are not looking
I
at
don't-
any sort of resource.
I
Where are you
don't-
pulling these numbers from? I don't know that I trust them.
This is my brain, man. I don't mess around when it comes to fun facts. Obviously, we got the Grand Canyon. It's a great time. We don't have daylight savings time. That seems to be the thing that is throwing all of these like out-of-state media.
It's quite funny.
It's absolutely hilarious when they come in. They're like, there was a lot of media that showed up late to the media day yesterday because they came in from like Vegas or LA and they assumed it was the same time zone. They're like, oh, I have an hour, and all of a sudden when they get to Arizona, they're like, ah, I don't have an hour.
I will say the no daylight savings thing, that's a good policy.
I mean, we're the 48th state. Right?
It appears
We're back.
things are picking up once again here at the UFC morning weigh-ins. That was probably the longest break that I've ever seen
been a long
between the
time.
first batch and the second batch, but here we go. Chrome Gracie kicking things back up for us.
$146.
146 for Chrome Gracie, who's making his UFC debut here this weekend against Alex Caceres.
We just talked a lot about him.
You know, it's interesting. We're being told that 30-minute wait between Chrome Gracie and the prior individual who weighed in for undisclosed reasons. I don't know that I've ever seen that.
Like that, there was a reason for that long
It
break?
appears so.
Maybe they all came in on the same bus? Or like, we're in the fighter hotel, so there's no bus. Huh.
Interesting,
I
and
don't
we'll
know.
investigate that. In the meantime, Chrome Gracie making weight for his UFC debut.
Yeah.
And this will be a big one. I know there will be a lot of eyes
Maybe
on
no
this.
problem. I did hear some reporters asking Crone about the weight cut because hasn't fought in 2 years and doesn't come from a fighting background like that. But I mean, he hangs out with the Diaz brothers all the time. He's like, I know how to make weight. I've seen enough people do it.
And there's a camera crew here with Chrome Gracie. He and Alex Caceres both
Yes.
getting profiled on the UFC Destin show.
I believe it's an ESPN Destiny show.
Either or.
Taking his time, getting dressed. Corny Casey in tow.
UFC matchmaker extraordinaire Sean Shelby making his presence felt here, walking through the back.
Is your car close and near the back, so which means Corny Casey must be up next. You talk about a tough resume. There's not many
Oh my
that have a
goodness.
resume of Corny Casey. She's not had an easy fight ever in the UFC.
She is one of the most curious cases I've seen in the UFC, because she has basically a 500 record in the UFC, but she is fighting absolute
The best of the
killers
best.
every time out, and they are going to close decisions almost every time.
And you could absolutely make an argument like Felice Herrig. You could argue
She is a
41.
couple coin flips away from being
She's one-
legitimately one of the best fighters in this
She's
division.
one scorecard away on 2 fights of being on a 4-fight win streak. Said she's 2-2.
Take your business elsewhere.
It appears we're going to need the hoop for this one.
All right, guys, we're going to bring up Vicente Luque.
All right, instead we're getting Vicente Luque while everything gets ready in the back for Courtney Casey. Vicente Luque, as we talked about, taking on Brian Barberina on this main card in a welterweight showdown that could have major implications for the winner. $171 for Vicente Luque. He makes weight for his welterweight showdown.
Absolutely. We're seeing the commission and the UFC holding the hoop and going over the instructions on how to hold the hoop. So it seems like a female fighter, maybe Courtney Casey, might need the hoop to make weight. Could also be just depending. I'm not sure. We don't see them, but I see Trapar close watching very closely, so I'm assuming it's Courtney Casey. In the UFC, I believe 225, there was a rule or something that UFC employees couldn't hold the hoop.
All right, here we go. Courtney Casey up next. Here she will need the hoop. She has always been a very big strawweight.
$116.
116 for Courtney Casey. She makes weight to a round of applause here at the UFC Phoenix morning weigh-ins. She is fighting Cynthia Calvillo on this main card. She is coming in off a split decision win over Angela Hill. The MMA gods finally shined in favor after those 3 state split decisions.
I think she was saying that, like, it's about time I got a split decision. She's basically like the, who just retired recently. Dennis Bermudez. He lost a lot of split decisions in a row, and then he finally got one. He's like, I got one. So, but again, another real difficult fight for Courtney.
You have to wonder if one day flyweight is in the future of Courtney Casey.
You would have to wonder.
She's a very big strawweight. That weight cut has never been fun for her. It seems as though it's getting harder as she gets older, as these things tend to do. There is a lot of opportunity in that flyweight division, but in the meantime, we are keeping things rolling here at the UFC morning weigh-ins.
Manny Bermudez. He's fighting Benito Lopez, correct?
Yes, Manny Bermudez up now, bantamweight fighter.
Didn't get a whole lot of time with him. I kind of got him near the end of media day, but I asked him, like, out of all these fighters, I think people know the least about you. He goes, yeah, I don't really care. He loves, very like the anonymous, can't say that word, being the anonymous fighter of the fight.
Once again, we have the towel out, and they really need to lower that towel at the moment. This is not... I don't understand why the men don't just get to use the hoop as well. It feels as though that is a much better way to do this. But I guess I'm not, that's why I'm not a commission member. Manny Bermudez up now.
$140.
140 for Manny Bermudez. He misses weight by 5 pounds here for his bantamweight fight against Benito Lopez. That is a rough one. That is a big miss. That is half a division.
Yep, coming in at featherweight.
He is a big bantamweight. You have to wonder if this might be his last fight at bantamweight. 140. Wow.
But there's no way Benito Lopez doesn't take that fight. I think he's coming off a long.
All right, Jimmy Rivera up now, and he is. Oh, he fooled us. Jimmy Rivera. Jimmy Rivera holding the towel, drops it. Little prankster.
Yeah, I was about to say he looks like he might have a rough cut. Doesn't look like that anymore.
135. 135 for Jimmy Rivera, championship weight. He says he is full of energy. He totally fooled me. I will say, I thought we were about to have a terrible moment there.
Yeah. He walked out looking rough, like holding the towel, kind of like nervous. He's like, I need the towel, I need the towel.
He was holding that towel for a while on the side here too. That was well played.
Very well played.
Well played by Jimmy Rivera.
Well, going back to the Manny Bermudez miss, 13-0 versus 9-0 Benito Lopez. So it's a fight against undefeated fighters. There's no way Benito Lopez doesn't take that fight. Hasn't fought since December 2017. I don't think it was, he might have failed a drug test. I'm not 100% on that, but.
Whoa, don't throw that out willy-nilly.
Something happened with him.
Right, and if you are just joining us here on the morning weigh-in stream, we have an hour left to go. We are halfway through. The main event fighters have not weighed in, Francis Ngannou and Cain Velasquez, although they are heavyweights, so I'm sure they are sleeping in and getting a big breakfast for themselves and not worried whatsoever.
They're really going to match Big Breakfast, one of the Food Network's favorite breakfast spots in downtown Phoenix.
Wow, that was almost like you were paid to say that in the way you said that. That's interesting.
I'll preach the gloriousness of Matt's Big Breakfast every day.
Up left, besides those two, Cynthia Calvillo, who has missed weight, or did miss weight, I should say, for her last fight. She talked yesterday at Media Day about having fixed those issues, addressed those issues, and worked on everything. She felt like she was in good spirits about her weight cut, that she was the lightest she had ever been. So we will see with her. Also, Ashley Evans Smith, Henan Brow. Henan Brow, obviously another one
talking about,
notorious for missing weight at this point, trying to make this bantamweight limit again. Also Jessica Penne. So we have a few fighters left here, but things appear to be rolling. And you know, Jose, it's interesting because this really is such a busy weekend, right? We had Bellator yesterday, we had Invicta yesterday.
Another Bellator.
We have Bellator tonight, and it's a big one. MVP versus Daly.
Yes.
A fight that I know I have been waiting for a long time. I'm sure I am not alone in that regard.
I remember you and I were sitting next to each other at UFC 202 talking about that possibly happening. We were like, we
gotta
need
go
that
way
fight
back
time.
for that.
Because Cowboy fought, I believe it was Rick Story on that. So when he had the combo head kick knockout, and I believe that was his last fight on his contract before he obviously re-signed with the UFC. And we were like, imagine if he went to Bellator, and we were like, oh man, imagine Cowboy versus Michael Page. Imagine Cowboy versus Paul Daly. And I was like, Michael Venom Page and Paul Daly needs to happen like tomorrow. And that was in what, 2016? We were talking about that, and it's finally happening this weekend.
I mean, this is a little off topic, but I will say this has been a fight, or just not even a fight, but a moment that I know a lot of people have been waiting for Michael Venom Page. Because I mean, what have we talked about with this guy for basically the entirety of his career? What will happen
if he fights
when he fights a real test?
Right.
And it's finally happening. It feels like it has been forever, but it is finally happening. I am so excited and just because I don't know what I'm going to see. I have no idea what him versus someone like a Paul Daly looks like, and that is ultra compelling to me.
I'm very glad it's the main event too. I didn't want this to be like a 3-round, like overshadowed by one of the heavyweight Grand Prix fights. Like I wanted full spotlight on these two. I wish it was in the UK.
Sure,
it would have made a lot, especially with Mirko Cro Cop in the co-main event, having him fight Roy Nelson again. Paul Daly and MVP in the main event, I think would have been something really special for that crowd. But that first media day stare down, when our own Dana Segura was on the scene.
Second one, too, for the weigh-in stare down.
Yeah, but the first one, Paul Daly didn't even acknowledge MVP. He just stood there. When they went during the face-off, he turned away and looked at the crowd, and Paul Daly just got right up as close as possible to his face. So there's no love lost between those two.
Yeah.
But Paul Daly's he's probably had like 50 MMA fights, close to it, and he's fought like that fight against Nick Diaz in Strikeforce might be one
of my favorite fights of all time.
That might be my favorite one-round fight ever. It's up there with like Melvin Guillard and Cowboy and that Denver fight. Like, it was just anarchy from the go, and I believe that's back when Dana was doing his vlogs, and he was there. That was one of the. They followed him to. It was like his first ever Strikeforce live fight. This is after the UFC had bought Strikeforce, and it would happen to be that was the main event. And the camera's on Dana, and he's just losing his damn mind. And you see Dominic Cruz in the back. He's there as a fan, just going insane. And then they showed Dana like walking to his car, and he's like out of breath, like from watching that fight. He goes, "Man, I love Strikeforce." So that fight has a special place in my heart. But
I do miss Strikeforce, I will say.
I do too. A lot of Cormier, Rousey, Rockhold, Romero.
Verdum, you go down and on and on.
Well, Verdum, he was in the UFC before and then came back. So I always, he's a Strikeforce guy, but I don't kind of group him in. Like Overeem came from Strikeforce too. Bigfoot Silva, Josh Burnett obviously was in the Verdum category where he's UFC, and then went to a few other places and came back. But Strikeforce was no joke. For a while, they were most of the top 5 in the divisions were Strikeforce guys. Kind of reminds me when the WBC got absorbed in, and that all those lightweights showed up.
Yeah. Well, one fight we haven't really talked about, I guess, on this main card for Sunday, and we've talked about actually one half of it. So I will say, we have not talked about Cynthia Calvillo yet, which seems strangely fitting in a way, because she feels like she has almost disappeared in a sense from this title picture at 115, where not long ago she was very much in that conversation. She lost once to Carla Esparza. That was the first loss of her professional career. And then she had that suspension, which I will fully always say was very stupid. It was for marijuana metabolites. Like, how are we still doing this in 2019?
Yes.
But she has that suspension. Then she comes back last year at the end of the year, gets a win over Poliana Botella. I have no idea how to say that name.
On the Argentina card.
Yes.
And that was when she missed weight too.
And she misses weight, but it is a dominant performance. Now here she is. She's on this ESPN debut, fighting Courtney Casey, someone who, as we talked about, is no joke in this division and probably the most underrated fighter in this division. This is a big, big spot for Cynthia Calvillo.
Yeah, I mean, she was also one of the, I was at UFC 217, that was the Michael Bisping versus George St. Pierre fight card, and that fight week is when they announced the partnership with Body Armor, and Kobe Bryant introduced Cody Garbrandt, Cynthia Calvillo, and Francis Ngannou as the Body Armor fighters. So she went from 6-0, undefeated, like
the Body Armor curse is real.
That's what I was about to say. Well, Francis knocked out Overeem in his next fight after being introduced. But after that, Cody lost obviously to TJ, and Cynthia lost to Carla in the next fights. But you're 100% right. And so she went from 6-0, undefeated, fighting on 3 pay-per-views in her first 4 fights, and getting introduced by Kobe Bryant. And I think that suspension obviously took time away from her fighting career, but yeah, you're right, 100%. But again, hard fight for Courtney Casey. But yeah, I don't want to say I forgot she was on this card, but there's so much happening that it kind of snuck up on me.
You know, you look at that strawweight division right now. Obviously, Rose Namajunas at the top. She's going to probably be fighting, or not probably, she is going to be fighting Jessica Andrade. Other than that, it feels like there's opportunity there. I mean, Tatiana Suarez, Nina Ansaroff, those are the two that
they have to fight.
Their fight is next. They're going to decide what's going on.
Yep.
But other than that, you look below that division, or below them in this division, there is opportunity for advancement very quickly, I would say.
Absolutely, and I mean, I feel like in my mind, we're just waiting for Tatiana to get her title shot at this point. I think
that does
personally,
feel inevitable to me.
I think she's the best 115-pound female in the world. I think she's the best fighter. And if she's not now, she will be. I mean, she's just physically built differently. She's like the Habib of the 150.
Absolutely. I mean, nobody does to Carla Esparza what Tatiana does or did to her in the way that she did to her. Just pure out wrestling, out muscling, just bullying her. No one bullies Carla
Absolutely,
Esparza.
and I mean, I wrote the Breakthrough Fighter of the Years, and I was like, she's pretty much the boogie woman of that division. Like, you don't want to fight her unless you're guaranteed. Like Nina will fight her because if the winner of that, if they do fight, if it becomes official, should 100% obviously get a title shot. But then, like, looking at the rest of that card, I mean, Mackenzie Dern is sitting at 15. You have Macy Barber coming up. She's another undefeated fighter. We just fought on the Denver card in November, and she has, I believe, the Nashville card. She's someone to watch, but there's a lot of, I think Joanna cleaning out that division for a while, kind of. It didn't set it back, but like, who?
It definitely feels different now.
Definitely feels different. Michelle Watterson, I believe, is facing Carolina on that Philadelphia card. So that's a big match because I feel like Michelle is such a lot of fans know who she is. She's a very popular fighter. She could kind of get elevated into that title picture very rapidly with a win. Randa Marcos is always there. Alexa Grasso has the Hispanic market and community behind her. And then Courtney Casey can beat pretty much anyone in the top 15.
You know, one story that, not to change the subject, but I will change the subject. One story that is strange to me, I guess, in a way, and hasn't really been talked about, but I guess maybe it hasn't been talked about much in general over the past 6 months, or year even. You have Renan Barão now on this card. He is on the early prelims. This is a man who, maybe a few years ago, not long ago, you go back to, I guess, it is long ago at this point, but you go back to 2014, and he is being talked about as maybe the best bantamweight ever, one of the top pound-for-pound fighters of the sport. You look at him since he lost to TJ Dillashaw. 5 of his last 6 contests he has lost. Before that, even.
Yeah.
6 of 8. It is a rough stretch for Renan Barão. He has missed weight multiple times. He tried out featherweight, comes back to bantamweight, misses weight.
Yeah.
It is, I don't know that I can think of a comparison
Johnny
for
Hendricks.
someone. Johnny Hendricks, that's a good one.
It's the only other one I can think of.
For someone who seemingly had his entire story change so dramatically, so quickly.
I was at UFC 169. That was when he knocked out Uriah Faber in the main event. They headlined over Aldo Lamas because I was supposed to be Cruz Barão, the title unification. And someone was like, is he like on Floyd Mayweather's level dominance? And looking at that question now is just baffling. I don't know what happened.
You guys all good to go? It's going to be Ashley.
All right,
Ashley Smith
things
up next.
appear to be picking back up here at the UFC Phoenix morning weigh-ins. Ashley Evans Smith coming up next. And she is taking on Andrea Lee in a flyweight fight here on the preliminary card on Sunday.
Guys, Ashley Evans Smith.
Ashley Evans Smith to the scale. Ooh, 126.5. So she is overweight by half a pound right now. It appears as though we'll try a second attempt with the hoop.
She looks very confused.
She does look confused. I don't know that she expected that number.
And her coach next to her was pointing to the scale in the back saying they had made weight backstage.
We appear to be doing some sort of hoop towel combination here over to the left.
I think they did that for Courtney Casey as well, so you can't, the flashes don't make
That
it
makes
see-through.
sense. That makes sense. I said this before, but I just don't understand why they don't do the hoop for the men as
I
well.
agree, 100%.
How many times have we seen inadvertent butt shots or even worse?
Was it Max Holloway when they put the towel in the front and they lifted it over and just showed everything?
It seems like a much more efficient way to do this for everybody involved, but
It sounds like a Sean Al-Shadi in-depth piece coming on
that
the hoop.
sounds like a terrible, terrible idea. All right, we are going for a second attempt for Ashley Evans Smith. She needs to lose 0.5 pounds from her original weight.
126 even.
126 even. And she looks relieved. She goes ahead and makes weight for her fight against Andrea Lee. And I will say, Jose, I mean, this feels like a very big spot for her. We have said that a couple times today about different people.
Absolutely.
But that is what we were saying. There's a lot of consequential matchups. And for her, she is 3-3 in the UFC. But Andrea Lee is a big name. Feels as though, again, there's advancement. There's opportunity for advancement here in this flyweight division.
Undefeated at flyweight though, right? 1-0?
Yeah, she's 1-0 at flyweight. She would be moved to 2-0 if she was able to be successful here on Sunday. And win over Andrea Lee is a big deal.
Very big deal.
And Ashley Evans Smith makes weight with the hoop, 126.
Had low-key one of the best entrances at UFC 223. She came out to the Delta Bombers. Yeah, I heard it and I was like, I did not know anyone else knew this band existed, so pleasant surprise on my part.
I forget who it was. He was a good sport about it. It was just like,
Very tall for a flyweight too. I saw when they stared down. I always assumed I always saw Andrea Lee as one of the taller flyweights, but standing next to Ashley Evans Smith.
All right, and we are keeping things rolling here on the morning weigh-ins. Jessica Penne up now. She is fighting Jodie Escobel in a strawweight fight on the early prelims. She is also using the hoop.
Former Invicta FC atomweight champion.
$118.
118 for Jessica Penne. She misses weight by 2 pounds for her fight against Jodie Escobel here on Sunday. And that is a tough miss for Jessica Penne. She is coming off of a suspension, a USADA suspension. This is the first time we are seeing her since that suspension.
And
She has lost 3 straight. She misses weight. That is tough.
2 of her losses were to Andrade and Joanna.
That's fair.
Two
And
of
I think
the-
that's important to note.
Yes.
Still, that is an unfortunate miss for the former Invicta champion.
Former atomweight champion. So that was that's 105?
Yeah.
Oh, she used to weigh at 105. Yeah. Well, I believe was dethroned by Michelle Watterson in the Invicta days.
And you hate to speculate about this type of thing, but I mean, this might be a make or break fight for Jessica Penne now, coming in off a 3-fight losing streak. It's a USADA suspension. She misses weight by a couple pounds.
You have to think so.
All right. And we have about 42 minutes here left at these UFC Phoenix morning weigh-ins. We are just waiting on Renan Barão, Cynthia Calvillo, and the 2 heavyweights in the main event.
We both said Cynthia and Renan were 2 of the question marks
Yes.
coming in at
So-
the very beginning.
The two heavyweights, I don't think we have to worry about, but
But they have
those
to worry
other
about
two.
it showing up late. Remember, Overeem showed up 5 minutes late, got fines like $500. I believe that was in Cleveland. He's like, I just woke up. What are you talking about?
It's an expensive breakfast, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, Cynthia Calvillo and Renan Brown, two people who have missed weight in the past, actually in their last fight. Those are two of the last 4 remaining for us. So we shall see how this plays out here at UFC Phoenix morning weigh-ins. We have already had 2 fighters miss weight. Manny Bermudez coming in at 140 for his bantamweight fight against Benito Lopez. And just now, Jessica Penne coming in 2 pounds over for her fight against Jessica Jody Escobar.
Jody's not the tallest strawweight either, so that's a significant size advantage already. And then you come in overweight. It's a rough spot for both women, but yeah, Renan Barão, I believe, is also he's been training in Arizona a lot lately. I think he moved over from Nova União to the Power MMA team, or the former Power MMA facility before it closed its doors.
And we are going to take a bit of a break here on the UFC Phoenix morning weigh-in stream. We will be back in a few minutes. Thank you for joining us. All right, and we are back here for UFC Phoenix morning weigh-ins. Renan Barão is up next. He is going to need the towel, and they are holding that towel very poorly. That was all right. Oh, man, 138 for Renan Barão. We have another weigh-in miss here. He misses weight by 2 pounds as well. That is a second weigh-in miss for Renan Barão, and this has become much more than a trend for him. I mean, I don't know that he can continue to fight
I
at
believe
bantamweight.
he missed weight against Aljamain Sterling too, right? In Anaheim.
Yeah, they negotiated a catch weight for that. That wasn't, he didn't miss
'cause of
weight, the California State
okay.
Athletic Commission.
You are correct.
But it appears as though this might be Renan Barão's final fight at bantamweight. I mean, it is beyond a shadow of a doubt now that he cannot make that weight anymore in a healthy manner.
We've said that a few times before.
Such an incredible turn of events at this point for this man in his career, man.
It is.
Just, again, we were talking about it, but you go back to 2014, he's been talked about as one of the greatest bantamweights ever, one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the sport. Since then, losing 6 of 8 contests, missing weight multiple times, now his second weigh-in miss in a row here at bantamweight.
You have to wonder if he's been in a lot of those quote-unquote gym wars leading up to, like, what, he was 32-1 before his first, like, he lost in the UFC, so 33 fights is a lot.
I mean, there's a potential for that too, but I wonder how much because he is a large man, he's a large bantamweight, I wonder how much the effect of trying to make that bantamweight limit, and obviously it's very difficult for him, has affected him over the course of his career, very much like a Johnny Hendricks. Like, at a certain point, that just compiles, that does not get easier and does not get better for you. And you have to wonder if all of those years of trying to make that limit, how that has hurt his career.
I remember when he used to shave his head to make weight. Like, that was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's not gotten easier.
All right, and we have one of the headliners coming up next, Francis Ngannou.
Oh my God, his coach's glasses are amazing.
258.
258 for Francis Ngannou. Life as a heavyweight. It's a good life.
You're telling me, what was it? Dana said he had like the hardest recorded punch, like the Guinness Book of World Records even recognized.
Well, who knows about that?
Yeah, I'm saying recorded history. And like Scott Holtzman said himself, like I asked him about the main event, and he's like, if Francis Ngannou punched me in the arm, I would die. Like my body would just collapse.
That feels like a fair assessment.
I'd be like, true. And
That is a large man. I will say it was interesting for me to, as I said, I spoke to this man at a restaurant earlier this week in the middle of downtown Scottsdale. And for anybody who doesn't know, downtown Scottsdale is a very affluent area. They're not used to seeing 6'5" African heavyweights walk around. And I would say that the number of people who just stared at him over the course of the day was pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, he's been here for how, like a few
Kind
weeks,
of
he said,
stands
right?
out.
He's been here for a few weeks, he said,
He's
right?
been here for a few weeks. They had an Airbnb that they had in Scottsdale.
Hiking that camelback, which is the landmark of Phoenix, Arizona.
We don't have much.
We don't.
have much.
We don't. And I do want to say, when I had mistaken Benito Lopez for Augusto Montano, who did fail a drug test.
This is what I'm saying, Jose. You can't jump to those kind
It's
of
true.
conclusions. Come on,
It's
man.
very true, but they both have like the colored hair, like half the side of their hair is colored. Augusto does have the red streak or whatever. But yeah, my mistake.
All right, and we have about 35 minutes here left at the UFC Phoenix morning weigh-ins. We are now just waiting on two fighters. Cain Velasquez, former UFC heavyweight champion, who's fighting Francis Ngannou in this main event. Also, Cynthia Calvillo, strawweight, who's fighting Courtney Casey on the main card. We have had 3 weigh-in misses so far, if I'm not mistaken. It has been a lot, so I may be wrong in that number, but I believe Henan Barao missed weight by a couple pounds. Jessica Penne missed weight by a couple pounds.
Bermudez.
And Manny Bermudez missed weight by 4 pounds.
Yeah, so it's been
So it's been a rough day here at these morning weigh-ins.
It's been a rough day at the morning weigh-ins. Off topic, I was talking with Casey, our cameraman, about this yesterday. Are you surprised there's not another heavyweight fight on this card with Cain Velasquez in the main event?
As a backup?
As like possibly a backup? It very
That
much
is
surprised
surprising.
me. Yeah, like maybe throw like the Derek Lewis versus who's he fighting? Curtis Blades. Like throw that in. Well then, because Curtis they're not going to give him Francis again, but throw some heavyweight fight somewhere on that card just in case.
I think the UFC has faith in Cain Velasquez because I know that the narrative around him is that he is injury prone and he is always injured, but this is a man who's been healthy for now almost 18 months. I mean, basically a year and a half he has been healthy, just on the sidelines, playing dad, enjoying his life, kind of waiting, biding his time and waiting for this moment. I don't think he would ever admit it, but the timing of his return is very coincidental, I would say. It's very opportunistic. I mean, I think he knows exactly what he is doing.
Right.
He's been also trying to get a new contract, and he finally did. So I think that the UFC had faith in him.
Training
and
with,
it appears as though, I don't want to jinx it, but it appears as though that faith was founded.
He's been doing a lot of work with the Olympic YouTube channel too. There's a video of him going to Senegal and training with the wrestlers on the beach. That was very fascinating because he was we see Cain Velasquez as just an elite fighter, an elite wrestler. He was out of his element as a Senegalese wrestler. So, and apparently he did his ancestry has part Senegalese.
1% Senegalese.
1% Senegalese, and I believe he had some.
He had 1% another African nation.
Some English.
And I do not.
Yeah. And here,
want to
speak of the devil.
Speak of the devil, Cain Velasquez up next. Speak of the Sun Devil. Well done, Casey. The Arizona native up next, former UFC heavyweight champion, steps on the scale with all of his clothes, shoes, and everything. He is enjoying life as a heavyweight. $248 for Cain Velasquez. And our main event here is official. I don't know that there was ever any concern.
I was about to be like, were you doubting that?
I don't know that there was ever any concern, but just in case, this main event is now official. Cain Velasquez in full gear, multiple layers, shoes, sweatpants, jacket, shirt, everything.
He probably
coming
just
in at 248, 10
probably-
pounds less than Francis Ngannou.
He probably just woke up.
It's very well maybe true.
Do you think?
Giving us also a bask in my glory type of look up and down as emotions.
Do you think, I was talking to another journalist about that, like say Daniel was the heavyweight champion, not Kane back then. Do you think Kane could cut down to 205? I mean, he's a big guy too.
No.
I don't think so either.
He is a thick man.
He's
that would kill him.
Yes.
He would have to cut off a leg.
Because Daniel's like what, 255 right now though? He would cut down to 205.
But you saw how badly that killed Daniel.
It's very true. Daniel's also a little shorter.
That was a
believe,
lifestyle.
Right? Yeah.
And yeah, Daniel's shorter, a lot shorter.
It is very true. It was it was posed to me, I'm like, I don't think so, but it's an interesting question to think about if Daniel was the reigning champion for so long.
I think if you run Daniel's career 100 times in different time periods, would be the only one where he would even ever attempt to come to 205, and it's purely because of his friend and his loyalty to Cain Velasquez.
Yes, and I mean, he was on the MMA Hour, and like, he says that Cain would beat him. If they ever did fight, he's like, why would I, like, but he
the
was
thing
like,
is, Cain will say that Daniel
that's what I was
beat
going
him,
to say.
so.
I was going to bring that up. Like, Cain also says Daniel beat him. Daniel says Habib would beat him. Daniel says Luke Rockhold would beat him. He's like, I'm just the fourth best fighter at AKA. And everyone's like, okay, Daniel Cormier.
All right, and we are getting close to done here at these UFC Phoenix morning weigh-ins. All that we have left is Cynthia Calvillo. Otherwise, more or less over. My name is Sean Shadi. I am joined, of course, by Jose Youngs. We have an all-Arizona crew here. Several fighters missing weight. Main event fighters, however, heavyweights, smooth sailing.
I mean, yeah.
I don't know that I've ever seen a more carefree weigh-in than I just saw from Cain Velasquez.
Yeah, you're right. Overeem is kind of like that. He just kind of takes his sneakers off and steps on the scale. He used to weigh in, like when he weighed in against Brock Lesnar, he just wore jeans and Jordans on the scale. Just took his shirt off to like flex, but that's about it. So life as a heavyweight is good. Roy Nelson used to do the same thing.
So now we come to the point where we are just waiting on Cynthia Calvillo. And she missed weight in her last fight. That is no secret. And this cut for her has always been difficult, down to that 115-pound limit. Speaking with her yesterday, she seemed very confident that this was going to be an easy cut for her. She said she was 4 pounds lighter than she normally is around this time. I think she told me she was 120 pounds yesterday afternoon. She addressed this issues in many ways, she said. But yet here we are. She is the last one left, 30 minutes to go. Maybe that means nothing. Maybe that means something. I do say though, man, the flyweight division, the women's flyweight division is wide open. And if I was a strawweight, who was a big strawweight, I would be looking at that division with hungry eyes.
100%.
Blow yourself up to 25, becoming healthy. And if you get 1 or 2 wins at this 125-pound division, you are right there in the mix.
100%, and Valentina could, I see Valentina holding that for a while, maybe until like someone like Tatiana might have to move up. Eventually, I stand next to her, and I'm like, how do you make 115?
She makes 115 easy, too.
That's what I was gonna say, like, not just make it, but like doesn't break a sweat making it. I think she'll eventually obviously move up. She could become a champ down the line. But yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, strawweight is so new, or flyweight is so new, and the Nico Montano championship, and then it fell apart and everything, kind of put it on hold for a little bit, like the top of the division. Valentina waited around, and now that she finally does have the championship, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, Jessica is deservedly should be the next fight for her. She's what, 3-0 at flyweight, just beat Caitlin Chikagian. She was also, I believe, like 2-0, 3-0, but absolutely.
But we just saw this last week with Montana De La Rosa, where she has strung together a couple nice wins now at 25, and all of a sudden she is being talked about in that conversation. It doesn't feel like it would take much. And if I'm Cynthia Calvillo or Courtney Casey, someone who struggles to make this weight, why not?
Yeah, 100.
I mean, that's easy for me to say, but I don't know.
We're going to see like Jessica Rose Clark. She wouldn't say she's 2-0. She could be like right there in the top, near the top 7, top 8. At 125 pounds. Roxanne Modafferi is still out there. Is Roxanne 135? 125 now. She's
125.
125, correct. She was the 130. She did 135 pound tough the first time, and then won the tough the next time, I believe. So, I still in my brain she's 135. She's fighting Valentina's sister next. Yeah, correct. What are you laughing at?
I don't know. That was a bit meandering, but it
Whatever.
was funny to watch.
Let me talk myself through it, Sean. We can't all be just perfect on the microphone like you.
I don't. Well, let's not get too crazy here.
That's interesting. Cynthia's the last person to weigh in. Still waiting on her.
All right, we are going to take a short break here on the UFC Phoenix
You don't want
morning
to talk
weigh-in
about the
stream.
Phoenix Suns for a while?
I mean, we're thick in the weeds at this point, and we're about an hour and a half in. So if anybody's still watching and you would like to talk about Phoenix Suns, we can go ahead and do it. It'll just end up with me crying or getting angry.
So if you'd
Those
rather,
are the two outcomes
if you'd
here.
rather watch a grown man or listen to a grown man weep to himself, we can talk about Sean's beloved Phoenix Suns. How they doing, Sean?
Me and the Phoenix Suns are on a little bit of a break right now.
We'll see.
It's gotten to the point where if Devin Booker won a three-point contest today, again for his back-to-back,
Would you care?
I don't know that I would care.
I think I
That
saw
was like
that
the
on-
highlight of my year last year.
Really?
That's how little we had. I don't know that I would care at this point.
What was it, 15 game losing streak?
Yeah, a record that we have tied
From last year? You guys are so good. What if you guys get up? Because
Look
you know
at this smug Boston fan
Celtics.
next to me.
Hey, man.
Oh my God.
Someday you'll learn. All right. Who's your football team, Sean? Who is your football team?
What does this have to do with anything?
Right, smug Patriots fan. And you know the NBA is not going to give you the first overall pick,
Oh,
so you're going to miss out on
There's no way
Zion.
in hell that we get Zion Williamson.
No, NBA won't allow that.
They won't let us ruin him. He's going to
my
the Knicks
gosh.
or the Bulls. And that's,
Yeah,
It's just not even a question. I'm not even beginning to hold out any hope for that whatsoever.
that's good though, because then when you do get the first overall pick, you'll be that much happier.
Yeah, no, that timeline doesn't exist.
That timeline doesn't exist.
Doctor Strange has seen through this 1,000 timelines, and that the timeline does not exist at once.
Well, I would say the future looks bright, but I don't know if I can say that.
The smile, the smug smile on your face
Hey,
right
man.
now is aggravating.
Someday, you'll have a good basketball team.
No, we won't. This is going to last until the end of time.
The end of time.
Well, now that Jose has thoroughly brought my mood down,
I was trying to.
we are we are going to go take a quick break here at the UFC Phoenix morning weigh-ins. We will be back again. We are just waiting on Cynthia Calvillo. Everyone else has made weight, with the exception of 3 individuals: Jessica Penne, Manny Bermudez, and Renan Barão, the former bantamweight champion, once again missing weight for this bantamweight limit. We will be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to the UFC Phoenix morning weigh-in stream. My name is Sean Shadi. I am joined by Jose Youngs, and we have our final fighter here weighing in, Cynthia Calvillo. And it appears we are having the hoop once more. In the meantime, I have been told by UFC officials that the three individuals who missed weight, 20% of their purse for Jessica Penne and Renan Barão, they will be fined 20% of their purse, and then 30% for Manny Bermudez. So plenty of fines to go around here at the UFC Phoenix morning weigh-ins.
I will note though, when she weighed in Argentina, she was like struggling to walk on the scale and stuff. She doesn't obviously look like that right now.
You're talking about Cynthia Calvillo, of
yes.
course. So let us see. This is the final fighter of the day.
Even.
116 for Cynthia Calvillo, and she pumps her arms. She is fired up.
Her coach, Justin Buchholz, off to the side, is so hyped right now.
It appears as though this one was a difficult one for Cynthia Calvillo, but she makes it. She makes this weight, 116. You do have to wonder if her future is at strawweight, and this was a difficult one for her, but she makes weight, and that is it for us here at the UFC Phoenix morning weigh-in stream. To recap, 3 individuals missed weight today. Jessica Penne, she will be fined 20% of her purse. Renan Barão, he will be fined 20% of his purse. Both of them missed weight by 2 pounds. Manny Bermudez as well missed weight by 4 pounds. He will be fined 30% of his purse. Other than that, everyone else, smooth sailing. There was lots of hoops and towels being used, but everyone else made weight, including our main event fighters, Francis Ngannou and Cain Velasquez. And so this has been a eventful morning here at the UFC Phoenix morning weigh-ins, but we are now.
And I remember, like, we had that run at the beginning of all the fights, like, just right out of the gate. I was like, yeah, this might be a good card. And then it's fan.
Hey, well, things happen in MMA. To quote the old Gus Johnson. In the meantime, keep it locked to MMA Fighting. We'll have ceremonial weigh-ins later today, as well as our preview show from here in Arizona. We got Paul Daly versus Michael Venom Page later tonight as well.
My body is ready.
Eventful weekend here in the mixed martial arts.
Pro Cop too.
Yes. In the meantime, thank you so much for keeping it with us all morning from Arizona. My name is Sean Shadi. For Jose Youngs. We'll see you guys later today. Thank you.